Everybody wants to apply to music grants, but you have to realize that they're very competitive and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's challenging to actually win funding for your projects. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how likely you are to win Factor's Artist Development Grant if you apply this year. Let's go. Are you an artist, producer, engineer, or music professional that's looking for funding for your music career? Could you benefit from having funding for studio time, mixing and mastering, or even marketing costs? I think I have something for you. I've written a free ebook. It's 9 pages, super short and digestible, where I break down the 6 main places that artists and professionals like yourself can find funding for their musical projects. If this sounds like it's of value to you, please click the link below and you can download this for free today and benefit from this knowledge. I hope this helps. I'll see you guys soon. Peace. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy, 5-Piece producer and engineer extraordinaire. Thank you for checking out today's video, and if you haven't already, please hit the bell and the subscribe button below to stay tuned for more helpful videos. I cover a lot of different stuff in my YouTube videos, ranging from recording, mixing, and mastering, all the way to stuff that we're talking about today, like music grants. Now, what I specifically want to talk to you about today is how likely are you to win a Factor grant, and specifically how likely are you to win the Artist Development Grant that they offer. This is a very, very popular program, and as a result, it can be very competitive. But I think it's important to look at the numbers and understand how likely are we to actually win this funding if we apply. To do that, we're going to jump onto the computer and I'm going to take a look at Factor's annual report. Every year, Factor releases an annual report. This report lets you know how they decided and how they distributed the money or the funding for that calendar year. Now, this usually comes out every single summer, and you can find it by navigating to their website, clicking on About the Foundation, and then clicking on Annual Reports. Now, what I'm particularly going to focus on in this video is the 2018 to 2019 calendar year. That's because this is the most recent and current information available, although I'm sure they will be releasing the 2019 to 2020 breakdown shortly. Now, if you want to look into this yourself, you can just click here, hit download PDF on the most recent one, and inside you'll find all kinds of information, and this is what I use to create this video. So everything I'm going to show you here is my own insights from the information that they've provided. By no means is this supposed to represent what they're giving you in their own documentation. However, this is my interpretation of what they've provided, and hopefully it's going to give you some more insight into how likely you are to win a Factor Artist Development Grant. So let's start by answering the first question. How much funding was given away in total? In the 2018 to 2019 calendar year, Factor paid out $19,466,004 to roughly 2,210 projects across all programs. So not just the Artist Development Program, but all programs. However, $601,750 was paid out specifically to successful applicants of the Artist Development Program. So $601,000 roughly was allotted from that $19 million budget. And as you can see here, that Artist Development Program payout works out to be about 3% of the total money awarded for that calendar year. So a really small percentage, especially when you consider all the other programs that Factor has, including juried sound recording, video, showcase, songwriting, all kinds of different programs. So now the question becomes, how many applications were approved? And we're specifically going to look now at the Artist Development Program. Roughly 2,299 people applied to the Artist Development Program over the 2018 to 2019 calendar year. However, only 301 applications were approved. When you do the math on that, you're going to realize that about 13% of total applications were approved and actually offered funding. So despite the volume of applications, only 13% of those that applied actually won the funding. And how much funding was offered exactly here? when we look at the artist development program again specifically, Factor received about $4,336,958.11. So that's the total amount that was requested by people applying. And that makes sense because there was quite a few people that applied to this program. Each application was probably worth roughly $2,000, which is the total maximum you can request. And you can see how we arrived at that total. However, of that $4.3 million roughly that was requested, only $601,000 roughly was awarded to those 301 successful projects that I mentioned. And when you do the math on that, you're going to find out that about 14% of that total funding that was requested was actually offered. So this is pretty much in line with the total amount of applications that were accepted being 13%. So now let's take a look at genres. Which genres specifically had the most approvals? And we're going to look at this based on the total applications approved across all programs. Factor doesn't simply let you know which genres were approved the most for each individual program, so we have to look at this across every single program they have, including video, juried sound recording, etc. So coming in at number 5 is the genre that I work on, which is hip-hop. So hip-hop had about 113 application approvals, and that represented about 5.1% of the total approvals for the calendar year. Following that, we had pop. Pop music had 226 approvals, representing about 10.2% of the total approvals for the year. Coming in at third was rock. Rock had 241 approvals, representing 10.9%. Followed by alternative, which is a very similar genre in a lot of ways because it is another derivative of rock, and that's 250 approvals, representing 11.3% of the total approvals for the year. And coming in at number 1 is folk. Folk music had 290 approvals, representing 13.1% of the total approvals for the calendar year. Now again, this is based on all the programs and not just the artist development program, but this is really telling you a lot. In fact, what it's really showing you is the top 5 genres account for over 50% of total approvals. These top 5 genres alone are really worth more than 50% of the total approvals, and there's about 24 other genres, or 24 genres in total, I should say, that you can select when applying to Factor, yet these 5 came out on top no matter what. This is important to pay attention to, especially if you make these genres, and actually if you don't, because you can see that these are the ones that people seem to favor, or maybe they're just the ones that have the strongest applications. The next thing we want to answer is which genres were offered the most funding. Now, this is different from which ones were actually approved the most, because you can get approved, but that might not necessarily indicate how much money you are actually receiving. So this list is going to be a little bit different from what we just saw. And once again, we have to remember that this is based on all applications and not just the artist development program. Coming in at number 5 is country. Country music overall was awarded about 4.3% of the total money given away through the 2018-2019 calendar year, and it represented about $844,000. Coming in at number 4 is folk. So despite being the genre with the most approvals, it comes in at number 4 on the list in terms of how much money it was actually offered. And in this case, it's a pretty significant number. It's $1.6 million roughly, and it represents 8.3% of the total amount of funding offered through the calendar year. Coming in at number 3 is pop. Pop music received 1.7, actually just shy of $1.8 million, and that represented 9.2% of the total money given away in that calendar year once again. Coming in at number 2 is rock. Rock received $1.9 million roughly, and that represented about 9.9% of the total funding offered through the year. And coming in at number 1 is alternative. Alternative got over $2 million, represents 10% of the total funding given away through the calendar year. And what's important to note about this is these genres, they do require a bit more money to create because you have to book studio time, you have to record every single instrument from scratch usually, and all kinds of things like that. Whereas other genres like hip hop, for example, you could sit at home as a producer, a beat maker really, and you could bang out a beat in a 2-hour sitting using completely electronic sounds and get everything the way that you want. Whereas these genres, they are a bit more labor intensive and therefore do have a higher cost surrounding creating them. So the next thing we're going to look at is which genres were offered the least funding. So this is the opposite of what we've just been looking at, which is which ones were approved the most, which ones won the most funding, and instead, which ones are coming in at the bottom of the list. And this could help us understand maybe there's some opportunities to get funded because these are severely underserved, or maybe there's something going on within these applications that's preventing them from being funded. So once again, this is based on the total applications, and coming in at number 5 is hard rock. So this is a specific subgenre of rock, and they received about $129,315. That's pretty significant because coming in at number 4 is reggae, which received less than half of that with $51,338.50. Coming in at number 3 is the specialized genre. I'm not 100% sure what the genre is, but they received $51,322, so just slightly less than the reggae genre. And coming in at number 2 is children's music, so music specifically made for kids, and they got $47,513. And coming in at the top, which I was surprised about, is traditional indigenous music with $22,070. And overall, each of these individual genres receive less than 1% of the total funding offered. Now, how does this correlate to which genres had the least approvals? Are they going to be the same, or is there going to be a different set of genres here? And again, this is focused on which ones actually were approved for funding. Coming in at number 5, different from what we looked at before, is dance music. Dance music only had 19 approvals for the calendar year. Maybe there's not enough people applying for that genre, or maybe the quality of the applications is not as strong. Coming in at number 4 is hard rock. It was at number 5 on the previous list, but now it's number 4 here, and it had 12 approvals. So even less than dance, right? Not very many. Number 3 was a tie between reggae and specialized. Both of these genres had 11 approvals each, and therefore are number 3 on the list. Number 2 was children's music once again with number 5, and as you can probably imagine, number 1 stays in the same place it was, and that's indigenous traditional music with 3 approvals. So really, let's talk about what's the big takeaway from this. What are we really trying to pull away from this information? Seeing numbers and stuff can get boring and whatever, but we really just want to look at these numbers to understand how we can use it to improve our own applications and really understand how likely are we to win a Factor grant. So the thing that I really pulled away from this was roughly 1 in 10 applications get funded. When you looked at those numbers, 13% of applications were approved, 14% of what was requested was funded. So you have slightly better than a 1 in 10 chance of getting funded if you apply to a Factor Artist Development Grant, specifically here. And I already had an idea of this, but I really was able to confirm it here. Factor's Artist Development Program is the most competitive program that they offer. So here's just a small idea of a percentage of grant applications approved for a couple of other grants that they have available. And as you can see on the left here is the Artist Development Grant with roughly a 13% approval rating. Meanwhile, another grant program like Showcase had an 80% approval rating. That grant is specifically for showcases and live performances. The video grant, I think, had 67% approval rating. The marketing grant had about a 63% approval rating. So these are significantly higher numbers, and obviously these programs are funding significantly more people than the Artist Development Grant. But similarly, those programs are probably not getting as many applications because, once again, when you look back, there's over 2,000 applicants for the Artist Development Program, yet they could only fund about 301. So what about the other key takeaways here? To me, I realized the most funded genres are folk, alternative, rock, hip-hop, and country. And by making these genres, you may have a better chance of getting funded, but there is also likely to be more competition, and that's important to be aware of. And similarly, there's the least funded genres that we overviewed, including the traditional indigenous music, children's music, reggae, specialized, and hard rock. And why they're the least funded, I'm not 100% sure. Again, maybe there's not enough applicants. Maybe the quality of the applications aren't that good. Maybe there's not enough people reviewing these applications. These are things that I'm sure Factor is working on. And in fact, I know that there's a lot of opportunity in these least funded genres, especially the ones that impact marginalized communities. With my conversations that I've had with Factor, I know that they're specifically trying to fund more indigenous related projects. And that could be an opportunity if you are someone that makes that kind of music. So there you have it. You got about a 1 in 10 chance of winning funding from Factor's Artist Development Program. Now, this is just a specific number based on the data that we're given. Every year is different. Sometimes they're gonna approve more people, sometimes they're gonna approve less. And if you have a really solid system and strategy for applying, you can likely increase your success rate. So for example, with myself, obviously I've been applying to this program for years, not only for myself, but for the artists that I work with. And right now I have about a 27% success rate. So that means a little bit better than 1 in 4 applications gets funded for me. And that's obviously better than the 1 in 10, which is the typical number that we just evaluated. Now, if you want to learn how to increase the odds of getting funded, you definitely want to check out my online course, How to Apply to Canadian Music Grants. In this course, I'm walking you through step-by-step how to apply to Canadian music grants like Factor's Artist Development one, and I'll leave a link below for you to check out. You can check out the first few lessons for free and just get a feel for what this course offers, and I guarantee you're going to have a much better chance of winning funding if you go through the program. I'm so happy that you watched this video, and I'm looking forward to helping you again soon. Definitely like, subscribe, and share with somebody that you know that will benefit from this knowledge. And I'm looking forward to helping you again soon. Peace out.
5.